What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports NFL Podcast. I'm Brinson, I'm your host, and it's a Tuesdays with Brady. Let's do Douzable, Brady Quinn joining me to talk some NFL draft. What's up, fellas?
Will,
we're just glad. How long has it been?
It's been a while. Been a hot minute, yeah.
Dude, you notice Will's facial hair and his tan? Those are two additions.
I see him, man. The man's been diving probably.
Yeah,
I have been diving. I've been skipping.
Are you scuba, Will? Are you scuba?
Scuba Will. I said this on the podcast yesterday, so I don't want to make the listeners hear the same story over and over again. But we saw an 8-foot hammerhead on one of our dives down in the Caymans. It was hunting for food. I saw this hammerhead shoot up, spear this stingray. Like thrashing around, blood in the water, proceeds to swim in a circle for 11 minutes, kind of like pushing us back as the divers. And the guy with us was like filming it. It was pretty crazy.
I heard he didn't want you because too much fatty tissue. That's what I heard.
Oh my God.
Rude. Goodness. I'm delicious. Thank you.
Delicious.
That's the right amount.
This hammerhead's not eating you. Those are lean ass meat. They're trying to come in and get the thick stuff in here, man. The hammerhead's coming after me. Although I take that back, I'd be able to outswim you, Brady. So I wouldn't be worried about it.
Not true.
We got to put this. We have to put this to the test now.
Well, dudes, Will is more buoyant than I am, so that would make sense.
Jesus.
Are we talking pool? Are we talking open water?
No, we're talking.
He can lay us back and float. He just would float.
Well, I hope you can float. What are you, an adult? I mean, I hope you can float on your back.
Some people use their seat as their floating device when they crash in a plane crash. It's just for Will. They just grab on the wheel.
Everybody just holds on the wheel, floats. It's kind of like the Iron Man thing. Everybody grab your partner.
Yeah.
So this is the situation where I shouldn't leave for multiple weeks because when I get back, Brady just
roasted. Just get
you knew it was coming. You knew it was coming too.
Much like your tan.
Yeah, we saw a bunch of lobsters too.
Yeah, you did.
Ain't nothing like it. Spiny tail lobster, baby.
Oh yeah, we're just walking around. Anyway, let's get going. We got a lot of stuff to cover for the draft. We're gonna play draft matchmaker today at all the various positions. You guys did a mock draft while I was gone. I think I was supposed to grade it, but I didn't watch it, so maybe later. Anyway, let's get to the quarterbacks. We have very good internet down there. Let's get to the quarterbacks first. We have 6 quarterbacks that are really of note in this draft. Obviously, the big 3, then joined by J.J. McCarthy, who could slide in depending on where you think, and then Michael Penix and Bo Nix on the back end. We'll start, of course, with the guy who's going to go number 1 overall, and with whom I assume we're all going to match him with the Bears, Caleb Williams. I'm curious what you guys think, and maybe you've answered this on here and I just forgot, but where does Caleb Williams stack up as a prospect for you guys? I mean, we're matching him up with the Bears. We don't need to mess around with it. But where does he stack up as a prospect relative to other recent top picks, whether it's like a Trevor Lawrence? I go as far back as you want, Andrew Luck, in that sort of range.
To me, he stacks up right up towards the top. I think when you look at the fact that he was a Heisman Trophy winner, that's one thing, obviously an individual accolade, but he also provided hope to a Southern Cal program that I don't even know how you want to describe, what was kind of taking place there with Clay Helton, and then you get Lincoln Riley, but really without Caleb Williams, you peel back the layers to it, and you're like, he didn't have great protection, he didn't have any defense. It was pretty much Caleb Williams, carrying that team. I'm really curious to see what they'll be without him this year. So to me, I would put him up there amongst the kind of Joe Burrows who came off the greatest season we've ever seen in college football history for a quarterback, in my opinion. Trevor Lawrence obviously was one that was up there too, but also, he took over at a program at Clemson. It's not like they were struggling before he got there. I think it's one of the differences in looking at, to me at least, Caleb, was the way he uplifted Southern Cal to be as competitive as they could be, considering just how decimated they were, and obviously what I think they're going to be. I'm not really sure how they're going to fare transition to the Big Ten life after Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I'm with you, Brady. I actually put him a little higher. I put him, and I lost you for a second, but when you look at, past number one picks, I put him in that rare air with like Andrew Luck, just because of what you talked about, right? When you talk about going to USC, a program that is known for its tradition, and it kind of had fallen off by the wayside, and what he was able to do to elevate that program. Same thing, Andrew Luck in Stanford for the longest time. It was going back and forth between whether this was a basketball school, this was, a school that people go to for the educational purposes, and in regards to them actually competing. When Andrew Luck got there, he changed the mindset of that team. It became a gritty team, right? And they took on that mantra with their head coach, Jim Harbaugh, at the helm. So when you talk about Caleb Williams, and we know the film wasn't as good this year as it was last year when he won the Heisman, but Brady, when you look at the film, it looks like he was pressing a lot, right? Because he knew that his defense was probably going to give up 50 points every game. So he at times tried to be Superman out there. The thing that I really love about him, that yes, people get enamored with the off-platform throws and, the 60-yard runs. But the thing that I really love, Brady, and that I saw that you could really lean on in regards to what you'll see him at the next level is you saw him at times throwing rhythm in at times, right? So it's not like it isn't on tape. You see it on tape, so he can live within the offense. And going into a situation, Will and Brady, with the Chicago Bears, I can't say that I remember in recent history a number one pick, more specifically a quarterback, going into a similar situation like he will be going into Chicago. They've tried to do everything possible to make sure whoever they draft, and we're all assuming it's Caleb Williams, will have sustained success, right? They traded for Keenan Allen. They got DJ Moore last year. They could potentially get another pass catcher in this year's draft. They took an offensive tackle at the number 10 spot last year. Their defense, they traded, got Montez Sweat. They're a top 5 defense now. So now Caleb Williams doesn't feel like he has to go out there and put up 50 points, right? Like the team is going to be able to uplift him. He's not going to have to uplift the team. So to me, I would put him in that rare air where we put Andrew Luck at in regards to like former number one picks.
All right, right down the board a little bit, we got Drake May and Jaden Daniels. My mock draft went up on Tuesday, my third mock draft. I had Drake May going second overall to the Commanders. I realized that flies in the face of the current odds. All the reports out there that it's Jaden Daniels is going to be number 2. The odds in, yes, Brady. The odds in Vegas say it'll be Jaden Daniels number 2, but the odds in Vegas are reactionary. They're not predictive when it comes to the NFL draft. I'm curious, Brady, where you would match up Jaden Daniels. What are you laughing at? You're muted, Brady. Let's try to be professional.
Hold on. Is that true? Because they're predictive, obviously, with Caleb Williams, but they're not predictive when it comes to the number 2 pick and Jaden Daniels.
No. Seriously, the draft odds are reactive to news and like rumors that are put out there. Dude, on April 12th last year, CJ Stroud was minus 200 to go first overall to the Panthers, and then 3 days later it flipped. It was Bryce Young.
Okay, so wasn't that then predictive of what took place?
No, it was incorrect. CJ Stroud did go first overall. It reacted once it was reported that Bryce Young was going to be the pick. I promise you, they reacted.
Okay, so at what point then are they actually predictive and not reactive? Because you're trying to make the claim right now that because the odds are in favor of Jaden Daniels, that means nothing because they're reactive. Yet you look at Caleb Williams, and that's predictive. So
we all know Caleb Williams is going 1 overall. They're not predictive. It's now like
it's predictive. It hasn't happened yet. It is predictive. That's why the odds are what they are.
Okay. Have you heard anything that indicates that Jaden Daniels is number 2 pick? Have you talked to? Are you in like a super handsome former quarterback club with Cliff Kingsbury, and you guys like message each other? And he's like, "Hey, bro, like we're taking Jaden Daniels 2 overall." Did you get kicked out of that club recently? Like, what's up with that?
Nope, still in that club. It's been a little quiet though in the chats as we get closer to all this. You lobster, you. I'm going to stick to the script because we like veered so far off course as far as our matchmaking for these. I have Jaden Daniels best fit, not with the Washington Commanders, even though I do believe he'll go number 2 overall, as the odds predict. I've got him going to the New York Giants. And for this reason,
really,
I think when you look at Brian Daboll and his ability to work with a young quarterback, put him in a position to succeed. You can even look at this short sample size with Tommy DeVito early on, wasn't great. Then he started to kind of find a rhythm, and he showed out a little bit. I think if you look at that roster too, in order for the Giants to be successful, unless they add in a lot of other pass catchers and playmakers, They need a quarterback who can run. And he's the one quarterback in this class that I think is a true dual threat you can implement in the running game to be a part of that. So to me, Jaden Daniels would be kind of that high tide that would help elevate the talent around him. They've invested a lot in the offensive line, not so much in the skill players. And obviously Saquon's not there anymore, even though they got Devin Singletary. So in my mind, I'm like, all right, what guy could help maximize the running game, help maximize or limit what you see defensively a little bit? Jaden Daniels would be that because of him being a running threat and how that may help simplify some of what defenses can do against him.
I like where you're going there, Brady. But to your point, like you said, we don't see him getting past pick number 2. And I liken it to Cliff Kingsbury and his offense, right? When you look at the history of who Cliff has had, Caleb Williams, Kyler Murray, I think Jaden Daniels fits in that mold in regards to being a playmaker, not only throwing the ball, but running the ball too. And I think a facet of his game that isn't talked about enough, to me, he has the calmest feet in the pocket out of all these quarterbacks. Yes, people get enamored with him running for 1,000 yards, but when you break down the film, he's calm in the pocket, right? You never see him really panic in the pocket, and you see him make the big time throws. So he can beat you from within the pocket. He can also beat you outside of the pocket. So Cliff Kingsbury, and just knowing his history with athletic quarterbacks, I think to me the best fit is the Washington Commanders. And the good thing is, Brady, people are talking about he has 2, would-be first-round pick receivers from LSU. Well, he has 2 really good receivers at the Commanders, too, when you talk about John Dotson, a former first-round pick, and Terry McLaurin. So he's going to have some offensive firepower out there in Washington to use, even though they're picking 2 overall.
Dudes, I don't know if you know this, Josh McCown, former high school coach, one of the high school coaches of Drake May, now in Minnesota. Do you think the Vikings are a good fit if you're playing matchmaker for Drake May?
I honestly think they are going to trade up. It just depends on how much the Patriots, quote unquote, love or not in love with Drake May. I know they got Jacoby Brissett. They've already come out, Gerard Mayo, and said they're comfortable if they have to start Gerard Mayo. And Gerard Mayo can win in this league. He's proven that he can do that. And when he's been called or thrust upon to start and spot start, he's actually played really well. So I think
Jacoby Brissett, you mean? Jacoby Brissett.
What did I say?
Gerard Mayo.
Oh, sorry. Jacoby Brissett. I'm sorry. Jacoby Brissett has proven that he could be a spot starter in this league. So I can see the Patriots potentially trading out. And to your point, right, you talk about Drake May, former coach was Josh McCown. Also, there's rumors supposedly that the Vikings have an affinity for Drake May, and they signed Sam Darnold this offseason where Drake May wouldn't have to necessarily start this season. I think he actually needs a year to sit and learn behind a veteran before coming in. We saw all the talent in the arm placement and what he has, but we also saw the inconsistencies this year when he lost a guy like Josh Downs last year. So I think the Minnesota Vikings make a lot of sense. I think they could potentially even trade up to go get Drake May.
I like the Vikings for Drake May, in part because of the McCown connections, which makes some sense. I also think about what he didn't have during the first half of the year without Tez Walker and what things looked like, where people were pretty critical of his play. And so I feel like if you give him Justin Jefferson, if you give him Jordan Addison, you're going to see the best of him. I also think he's capable of running some of the boots, some of the move the pocket passes that Kevin O'Connell wants to do within that offense. So for me, I think the Minnesota Vikings would be a really good fit scheme wise, really good fit personnel wise for Drake May to maximize and see what he's capable of.
Yeah. And I think there's also a chance, in my mock, I had Jaden Daniels falling to the Vikings, or the Vikings trading up to 5 where they took Jaden Daniels. The point I was really trying to make wasn't necessarily I think Jaden Daniels will fall, just that I think there's a possibility that the Vikings could get to 5 and get a quarterback, because there's a chance that the Cardinals at 4 may very well say, all right, we're not moving out of 4 unless we get a future first-round pick. And I think it's going to be hard for people to really give up that future first-round pick to move all the way up there. I think you get to 5 easier. So, yeah, like Drake May could have gone there instead. If Jaden Daniels goes 2, I think there's a decent chance we see Drake May fall to 4, fall to 5, maybe because – if you want to get weird, is it possible J.J. McCarthy and the Patriots are a good match? Michigan ties, Brady? I have no idea.
That's what I was thinking. You got a former Michigan quarterback, won a national championship. Why not bring in a J.J. McCarthy to try to not immediately follow in the footsteps of, but of the Michigan quarterback who brought you so much glory there. I also think it's going to be a team that, if you look at Alex Van Pelt, their offensive coordinator, coming from the Cleveland Browns, they were 4th last year in the NFL in rushing. You know who else was 4th in rushing last year? Michigan in the Big Ten. So it could make some sense where you've got that sort of offense that isn't going to force him to have to necessarily carry the team, very similar to what he experienced in Michigan, but ask him to make throws when called upon, which he did also at Michigan. So I think from a scheme standpoint, personality, character, all the things they're looking for kind of fits that like New England style, good old Michigan quarterback there.
I went with the actual Giants, right? And it was kind of what you were talking about with Jaden Daniels in regards to Brian Daboll being the head coach. I kind of liken that to J.J. McCarthy too, because yes, Jaden Daniels is the clear-cut best athlete of the group, but J.J. McCarthy has some wheels as well. And we saw what Brian Daboll did with Daniel Jones, who has a similar game to J.J. McCarthy in regards to being able to get outside and throw on the move, but also the RPO game, even though they didn't run it a lot at Michigan. I think that's something that can translate to the next level when you see J.J. McCarthy make those tight window throws over the middle. He's one of the best quarterbacks at throwing those tight window throws. And I think, with Brian Daboll and the Giants, even though they have so many other needs, if they feel like they can upgrade at the quarterback position and get a rookie deal out of it, I think it makes a lot of sense for the Giants to maybe even stay pat and be able to get J.J. McCarthy and not have to move up 1 or 2 spots at the number 6 spot and take J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah, and worst case is, the Giants can jump up to 4 if he falls there, and you just, the Cardinals say, all right, we're getting one of Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr. We'll just move down to 6. Not a bad trade possibility for Arizona there. All right, 2 more guys to talk about who sort of fit in. Like, at this point, we'd be shocked if any of the top 4 guys got out of the top 10, right? It feels like those 4 guys but like Michael Penix.
It depends on what I think at pick 6 is the question mark. If McCarthy or May fall past 6, teams would probably call up, but I could see maybe a slide to like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Wow, that would be shocking because it feels like Michael Penix is a guy, Deuce, who's been slotted in at like 13th with the Raiders, which is where you have him matched up as possibly going.
Yeah, for sure. I've been beating this drum for a while. Brady knows this. We did one mock where I had a little fun and gave the Dallas Cowboys Michael Penix Jr. because of the contract situation with Dak Prescott. Yeah. But when my perfect draft for the Raiders, I had them taking Penix at 13 overall. And Brady, I've been saying this for the longest. He's the best deep ball thrower in college football last year. To me, probably processes the best out of all these quarterbacks as well. And then when you look at the Raiders, what they have on offense with the, Devontae Adams and also Jacoby Myers, like this is a team that actually wants to throw the ball down the field. And there's nobody better at doing that than Michael Penix Jr. And you also already brought in a veteran quarterback in Gardner Minshew. So not necessarily do you have to play Penix this year, but I would not even be surprised if this is a scenario if they draft him where like Russell Wilson, in a Matt Flynn situation where Penix outduels Minshew and ends up being the starter on the opening week. So I think Michael Penix Jr., a lot of people may say this is too high for him, but I always said, Brady, if the medical cleared, he's a top 15 pick for me. So pick 13 is right in that mode. I think it makes a lot of sense for the Raiders.
His tape makes him a top 10 pick. I've said that since day one. His tape's phenomenal. So I'm not going to speak to the medical portion. I also have the Las Vegas Raiders being a good fit for this reason. You're going to be throwing a lot to Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL and reminds me of one of the best wide receivers coming out of the draft. That's Rome Odunze. And it's odd how eerily similar they are in size.
Correct.
So Odunze is more about 6'3", so he's a little taller than Devontae Adams,
yeah.
But they weighed the exact same at the combine, 212 pounds apiece. How big are their hands? Glad you asked. Devontae Adams, 9 inches. Rome Odunze, 9 1/4. What about their arms, right? Wingspan, arm length, all that good stuff. Rome Odunze, 32 1/2. And for those who don't know math, Devontae Adams, 32 5/8. All right. Just a little bit more there. But if you look at them, the way you break them down, very similar skill set, right? They're oftentimes Penix was looking downfield, looking for Odunze. That was kind of part of how they operated there in Seattle. And I think that's going to be what he's asked to do. Now, great. And Jacoby Myers, you pointed out, dudes, he's going to be a part of it. But I think for that team, that personnel, even that system, I think he'd make a lot of sense.
Correct.
All right. Bo Nix, Sean Payton. One word answer. Yes or no?
Yes, 100%. Second round, though.
Closest thing you could say to Drew Brees as far as
Correct
percentage accuracy and all that.
Bo Nix, Drew Brees, second round pick to the Chargers, obviously signed with the Saints in free agency. Worth noting, Broncos don't have a second round pick. Could see if Bo Nix falls out of the first round, which I think seems likely at this point, or would be surprised. It wouldn't be shocking if he went first round, but I don't think it would be crazy if Sean Payton called up the Panthers and said, "I'll give you next year's first for the 33rd overall pick, and you go get Bo Nix at 33 there." Carolina would love to get a future first, I think, after the fiasco that was the Bryce Young trade. All right, let's take a break.
Before we take a break, or could they consider trading out of the 12 spot to gain a second round pick?
Yeah, for sure. You trade down and get Bo Nix, because I think if you're 12, 12 is a little rich for Bo Nix. We all agree, I think, as well. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, wide receiver matchmaking next.
The UEFA Europa League quarterfinals on CBS Sports Network and streaming live on Paramount Plus.
This wide receiver class in the 2024 NFL draft is stacked. Now, you could talk. Look, I know Brady, aka Bill Nye the Science Guy, was spitting math on quarterback hand size. Or wide receiver hand size earlier in the podcast. Brady's also a big economics guy, dudes. Don't know if you know that. Talk about scarcity, opportunity cost. It's like he went to. Supply, demand. Yeah, and I think it is interesting to see how many wide receivers end up going in the first round, because you can make the case it's like, all right, there's like 9 or 10 guys that you think could be first round picks, but at the same time, all of those guys. The fact that it's so deep allows people to say, all right, maybe we can wait a little bit and get to, grab somebody in the second round. We will see.
It's also the point that we don't know what teams are going to do. I mean,
exactly.
In the mock draft before, I had all these Lions fans who were upset that I had the Lions taking a safety and Tyler Nubin. I'm like, well, for starters, let's just check something out. Cam Sutton's no longer with the team. Branch can go down and play that nickel position, so you would technically in your nickel package need another safety. So that makes some sense, actually. And what didn't really make a lot of sense last year was when they took Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell. How many people had mocked that up last year for the Detroit Lions? So that is one of the funniest things is when it comes down to the draft, there's always going to be curveballs, players that other teams have rated really high and they feel like is a need for them, as opposed to what we feel like on the outside. To talk about that, talking about it being a deep receiver class, because I mean, there's been past years where they said it was a deep receiver class, but I think one thing we've noticed the last few years, like usually there's a difference between the top guys, like the tier 1 guys, and then there's a fall off between tier 2 and tier 3 or tier 1.5. So I mean, going back to like the 21 class, right? When you look at it, or even 22 class, you see Garrett Wilson, Drake London, and then all the guys that were behind them have kind of fallen off the second round pick. So when you think you can get a guy in the second round, there's a chance to get one of these top 3 guys. I think some teams may be aggressive to try to trade up and get him, because there's a clear-cut difference between a guy that can come and help you from day one than taking a guy that's really good in the second round, and he may pan out or may not pan out.
I think we can probably – I don't want to linger too long. Look, it's sort of like Caleb Williams. And just for time purposes, I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. and the Cardinals makes too much sense, right? I feel like there's a chance that the Cardinals, with their wide receiver room and that depth chart there, which has really been stripped down over the last year, that they would even consider just saying, look, of course we'd love to trade down, but we know at 4, we are getting Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors. Like, we know that for a fact. Maybe you could trade down to 6 if somebody wants to come up and get a quarterback, and you can pick up an additional first-round pick or something like that. Wouldn't have a problem with it. I don't see the Cardinals trading down to 11. I think they're just too good a fit for Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, to that point, I know people have kind of marked maybe the Vikings moving up to 4, but if you're the Cardinals, it's like, do you chance moving to 11 and not getting one of the top 3 receivers? Like, to your point, well, I wouldn't do that. Like, no. Like, Kyler Murray needs a true number 1 receiver. So, yes, you would love to get some more draft capital because you have many needs on your team. But if you have a foundational piece that could potentially turn into a generational talent, like, you're not moving off of that. Like, that, you'd be absurd to move off of that.
Yeah, go find Carroll, right? So Cardinals make a lot of sense. They need it. They need it, and he's the best one. That's up for it. So makes sense.
So you're not a Pete Prisco acolyte who has Malik Neighbors above Marvin Harrison then, and
No,
where would you matchmake?
I'm willing to admit that I feel like Neighbors could have a better NFL career. And the reason why I say that is obviously situation, circumstance is always paramount. So the organization they end up with, the quarterback, all that, the system, that all plays a factor. But I also think Neighbors, if you look at the tape and what he was asked to do at LSU, moves around a little bit more, right? He's going to catch the ball in the short wide receiver screens, intermediate passing game downfield. Marvin Harrison's going to have his opportunity too, but I don't know how much you're going to use him too much in the screen game and the things that you designed for him, just because he's not as small and shifty like Neighbors is. So
he's like an old school, just alpha wide receiver one. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Correct.
Like Larry Fitzgerald, right? Like it wasn't
or Marvin Harrison.
Yeah, well, he's bigger than his dad though.
Yeah,
like that's the biggest difference. Like I compared him to Larry only because of the track record, but also it wasn't until later on in Larry's career where he moved into the slot and he started kind of finding the soft spots and zone and doing some of those things.
That was really all Bruce Arians coming in, and like that was his philosophy with the number one wideout. He wants you to move around, not live on the outside.
It was some of that, but it was also Larry's choice. Like he kind of realized, like, hey, I'm not going to be outside running a bunch of deep routes, deep digs, deep comebacks, and all that. I mean, that's just what he told me. I don't know. Maybe you talked to him. So.
I don't know. Like, I've just been covering the league since before you were born. No big deal. Sorry, that's Pete Prisco. I've been covering the league. I've obviously not.
You've been covering the league as long as you have that red tan you've got right now.
I've been covering the league since you were drafted. Actually, that's kind of crazy.
There you go.
But that's mostly because I wasn't playing football professionally. All right, where would you matchmake Malik Neighbors to, though?
I think the Giants, because obviously you're looking at like they're in a desperate need of a wide receiver. Yeah. They can probably move around, do a variety of things. I'm assuming Harrison's gone by then, so I'm kind of factoring it in that way. Otherwise, I'd say Harrison. There with the Giants too, but I would say Neighbors and the Giants would be a huge win for them.
Yeah, I went with the Chargers. They need playmakers on the outside. They lost their number 1 and 2 receiver this offseason. One released, Mike Williams, and then Keenan Allen got traded. So Quentin Johnson and Josh Palmer are kind of like their only 2 receivers right now. I think Malik Neighbors, you talk about being explosive. Brady, you talked about it. Nobody has a better start and stop in this draft class than Malik Neighbors. So, yes, we know Jim Harbaugh wants to be gritty on the O-line and run the football, but you still have a quarterback whose right arm has been blessed by the gods. Get him a playmaker on the outside.
All right, Roma Dunze, Brady, you have Bears. Bears. To me, this is and I had this in my mock draft, and I don't think it's crazy to agree with it. You just want him on the Jets, dude.
Exactly.
I mean, I think if you go get Caleb Williams, I know they got Keenan Allen, I know they got DJ Moore, but Keenan Allen's a 1-year rental basically, and DJ Moore is a really good number 2. I don't know.
No, you're disrespectful. DJ Moore's a 1. DJ Moore proved he was a 1 last year.
DJ Moore is a low-end 1 and a really, really good number 2 is what I'm saying. Not that he can't be a number 1. I just think if you can get a guy who can make – you disagree? You guys do disagree too, Brady?
I think he's a 1. Yeah.
You disrespected DJ Moore, man.
I also would say I feel like, he's going to do a lot more within this offense based on his ability. So I wouldn't categorize it that way. Look, I've got him going to the Bears because I feel like he fits kind of a need for that bigger body wide receiver. Going to isolate wide receiver, going to match up in the red zone, high back 5, high point the football on the back end line. That's more of my thought process behind what makes sense. Pair him with Caleb Williams at this point in the draft. He is the next receiver that I think will be there. And I also think if you're the Bears, to me it's these 3 wide receivers we've talked about and a bit of a drop off, to the next guys based on what we've seen so far in college. So if that's the case, you got to grab him before the Jets because I know that's where Deuce wants to go with it.
If the Bears draft Roma Dunze and have DJ Moore on the roster for the next 3 years, who's the number 1? Who's the number 2?
I think it's
my case.
It's still DJ Moore right now until Rome approves that he could be the number 1.
Yeah, come on now, don't be disrespecting veterans like that.
You cannot disrespect DJ Moore like that. That's
disrespect
crazy.
Veterans,
I think DJ Moore's a really, really good wide receiver. I think he's just better off if he's your number 2. Garrett Wilson is a 1. That's for sure.
That'll be a conversation. Garrett Wilson will still be the 1, even if Rome does go there. He'll have to prove that he could be the number 1. But selfishly, of course, I marked them to the Jets. But when I look at the Bears and what they've done, and me and Brady are on the same page, I think DJ Moore is a true number 1. Keenan Allen is on a 1-year rental. But they also made a move in free agency to get Gerald Everett, and they bring in Shane Waldron. I wonder if they go maybe more 2 tight end sets. I marked the because they got Cole Kmet as well, and he's a guy that they really like to put out there on the outside in red zone and throw him the ball out there in one-on-one situations as well. When I look at the Bears, though, I think they need another edge rusher more than they need a receiver, right? We saw what Montez Sweat and how that trade transformed that defense. So just imagine if he had a bookend with them. So, yes, selfishly, I want Rome. And Brady, you know this, my infinity for Rome Odunze. I think when it's said and done, he'll be the best receiver out of all 3 of these guys.
Wow.
Yeah, so I to me, him going to the Jets and pairing him with, Garrett Wilson. We know Mike Williams signed there, but he's coming off an ACL. Will he even be ready when the season starts is a question mark. I think it'll allow you to put Garrett Wilson in the slot a lot more, which is where he had a lot of success the last 2 years. And now he won't have to worry about that safety over the top because Rome's ability to go up and get the football in one-on-one situations. So, yes, selfishly, I want him to go to the Jets, but I just think the Bears need an edge rusher more than they need a receiver.
All right, so the next tier at wide receivers, is it a 2-man tier for you guys? Brian Mitchell and AD Mitchell, or Brian Thomas. And AD Mitchell. Yeah, Brian Thomas and AD Mitchell. Shout out Brian Mitchell.
I think Brian Thomas is 1.5, and then AD's in tier 2.
Okay.
I would say they're all kind of lumped together for me after that, honestly, because I think I'm going to lean on them in a variety of ways. Brian Thomas, it's more of the downfield, speed, and can he carry and become a number one? I think, he'd be the big play wide receiver you're looking to. AD Mitchell, I think more as the body, shape, size, and everything. Correct. It's just he kind of shared that responsibility with Xavier Worthy at Texas and Jatavian Sanders at tight end. Ladd McConkey's going to be your traditional slot, but I think it's more than that. I think we're probably underselling his twitch, his ability to separate.
Oh, yeah.
Closer to Cooper Kupp. Keon Coleman can do a bunch of different things, even for his size. So I don't know. I kind of lump all these guys in together as far as that next tier of guys that you're looking at saying they're very capable of maybe developing into a 1, but I don't think anyone's drafting them and saying they're going to be able to carry them that way. Right. I mean, one receiver we don't have on here, but I know Will really likes him. I know Pete loves him. Is Troy Franklin out of Oregon.
Pete's better than team. Yeah, that's right.
Guy going in the second round.
Well, let me ask you this: out of that group you mentioned, Brady, what's your favorite guy that you matched up, or you give one or two if you want? You guys both had AD Mitchell to the Bills. I know Adam Schefter was on.
It's worthy. It's worthy to the Chiefs because I want to see that offense with speed again. Like I want every single defense and defensive coordinator to be so scared of Patrick Mahomes and Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy and Travis Kelce and how are we going to match up? I am dying for this to become a reality because I miss the days of watching that offense with Tyreek Hill. And it's sad. It was like Pete Prisco watches soap operas. And I know he gets emotional about when there's these breakups and things. He's
a young and the restless guy. I mean,
100% young and the restless. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
This was heartbreaking for me to watch them separate. I know the Chiefs have won back-to-back Super Bowls and Tyreek's doing great in Miami. I still have these little thought bubbles with a heart for both those guys getting back together and finding a way of getting it back together.
Yeah, to me, the Chiefs are definitely going to go receiver in the first round. Could it be a situation where AD Mitchell maybe slips to them? Could Brian Thomas even slip to the back of the first round? I think Xavier Worthy makes a ton of sense as well. I mean, I've even heard rumors that Xavier Legette could make some sense to them at the back of the first round because we actually never seen Patrick Mahomes with a big body receiver, right? So a guy that can actually go out there and ready to win in the red zone or win on those 50-50 jump contested passes. We actually haven't seen Mahomes with that. So just imagine if he had that. When I look at this list, I love Brian Thomas as well. I think he could do a lot more. I think he was kind of overshadowed by what Malik Neighbors can do. And I think the one thing that he kind of wanted to emphasize during this process is that he could run all the routes because, Brady, when people talk about him, they talk about him just how you talked about him, right? He's a guy that can really threaten you down the field. He can take the top off the defense. But I saw him run dig routes. I saw him run drag routes. I saw him run comeback routes. They just didn't feature it enough in his game because Malik Neighbors did a lot of that in that LSU offense. So he's a guy I really like. And then Ladd McConkey, I just watched him again last night. And to your point, Brady, people are just trying to put this guy in the slot. No, he's a complete receiver. The way he's able to separate. I mean, I saw a rep last night versus Terrion Arnold, who's probably going to be a top 13 pick. And, oh, my God, he sold the post, Brady, and ran an out route and literally had like 4 yards of separation on Terrion.
Could you imagine someone saying the best fit for him would be New England just because all the white slot receivers they've had?
Yo, you messed up, bro.
Someone saying that.
I just said it because he's going to be there at the top of the second and they need a receiver. I didn't even think about that. I should have thought about it.
Capacity of the Edelman, Wes Welker. He's a white guy, can play wide receiver. Where does he go? New England.
New England.
Well, I mean,
I didn't even think about that.
In Deuce's defense, you did make a Cooper Kupp comp with Lad McConkey, which is
no. I think people look at him like, hey, he's like a Hunter Renfrow. It's like, no. I think his upside's closer to the offensive player of the year. Yeah, I wanted to compare him to Calvin Johnson. It's just the measurables really didn't, when they weren't there.
Well, you know what his measurables compared to? Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. By the way, you know what's crazy is you can actually take there's a 3-year stretch of Calvin Johnson's career, and it's like Wes Welker has better numbers over the same 3-year stretch of Calvin Johnson. I mean, Wes Welker was a monster with New England. Man. People undersell him.
Was.
I just can't believe Deuce would do that. Unbelievable.
No, I know.
I didn't even think about that, Brady.
All white slot receivers look the same. So
that's right. I will say,
just, doesn't he?
Two notes, maybe a Bill Belichick Patriot. 2 notes. One, I think Lad McConkey's a first-round pick. I think he's sort of pushed himself up into that discussion. You could see the receivers could shake out all different kinds of ways. I think he's there. Then 2, I heard Adam Schefter on Adam Levitan's Established to Run podcast. He's just been blindly asked, name one guy who's going to go much higher in the draft than he's being projected. And he said A.D. Mitchell was the guy that he thinks will be long gone by the
You don't seen him 20s. In person?
He's a monster.
He looks the part, man.
He's a monster.
He's physically built to be that guy. It really didn't happen for him at any point where he was solely that guy. But I think he can develop into that for sure.
Correct.
You guys both mentioned Brady had Brian Thomas, Carolina, 33rd overall. Deuce had Xavier Legette to the Panthers in the second round. Do you think there's a chance that I think this is realistic that the Panthers do one of 2 things, and it depends on who's pulling the strings in Carolina. If it's David Tepper still the puppeteer, I think they could package those 2 second-round picks, move into the first, and grab a wide receiver. If Dan Morgan really has full control here, I don't think it'd be surprising if they just sat back, hope for some scarcity, some supply and demand, some economic principles to take place. I think Dan Morgan might have been an economics major at UCLA. And then, I don't think that's true, and then grab 2 wide receivers. He played in Miami. Yeah, why do I think he played at UCLA?
UCLA? Jeez, dude. Come on, man. He went to the U. Don't
definitely went to the U.
Did he coach at UCLA? Yeah, he went to the U, obviously. Yeah, clearly. Who am I thinking about with UCLA?
It's a good question.
I don't know.
But Will, the thing is, the Panthers are essentially still getting a first-round pick because I believe they picked first in the second round, if I'm not mistaken. So, like, right. I don't know if they package those 2 second-round picks to move up just because they have needs on this team, right? They can still get with those 2 high-end second-round picks.
Okay, yeah, but yeah, I think both of those guys make sense as a fit for the Panthers. Would be shocked if they didn't take someone there. Keon Coleman,
Brady, you got Brian falling to the second round, huh?
Yeah, the first pick of the second round. I mean, it's yeah, you asked me for best fit, and that's one of the reasons because if you look at what they've done this offseason, they've obviously addressed somewhat of the wide receiver position, but they still need to in the draft. So it makes sense there. He could very well go in the first round. I kind of get with the Xavier Legette, Malachi Corley. It was kind of more of actually like the floor of where I think that's the latest they'll go.
Yeah.
So like get the latest, I think he's gonna be a top 50 draft pick, but I don't think he gets past Cincinnati at 49.
Correct.
Corley not past the Giants at 47, depending on what they do at number 6. You know, Keon Coleman, I think if he gets out of the first round, it's probably New England then at 34 that ends up taking him. So with those guys,
you think Keon Coleman hasn't been talked about at all.
I honestly think he's going lower than that, Brady, to be honest with you.
Again, just so you understand, dudes, I think he is 2. I think that's the 4. So
I got you.
Is the highest they'll go in the draft. Like they're not going to fall any more than that.
Yeah.
But Keon Coleman, Circus Sports opened up his over/under draft position 48.5 for whatever it's worth. So that's
about right.
That's not predictive of anything, you know.
Not at all. It's just an educated guess, Brady.
It's not. I mean, reactionary. They're reacting to news, dudes. That's what they're reacting to.
Right. Thank you for telling me about the betting market.
You're using it when you want to. Like it's like, oh, when's the quarterback scale comes out? It comes out when I want to. Hey, when the back-to-back road come out? Well, it comes out when I want to. Like that's what you're doing right now. You're pulling a Pete Prisco.
All right, I'm going to take a Pete Briscoe and throw it to break and just exit out of this conversation. When we come back, some more matchmaking next.
Out there are two colossal beings, both forces of nature in their own regard. But in here, as soon as the chute bursts open, the duality of man and beast begins to fade. This is the PBR on CBS Sports Network.
Fascinating to me how this running back class in the draft and this running back free agent class matched up with like 5 or 6 huge, like name Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard you could throw in there too. I mean, just an incredible group. Austin Eckler, like an incredible group of running backs to hit the free agency market. And at the same time, you have a running back market in the draft that just doesn't feature anybody that you think. I think the over-under was, not that it's predictive, was 0.5 and minus 10,000 for the under on running backs in the first round, because obviously they see.
I wonder what it is for running backs in the first 2 rounds. That's what I would love to see.
I don't. Have
I can see this going where only maybe 1 or 2 guys going.
I was going to say 2.5.
Yeah, no, it might be too high, honestly.
Jonathan Brooks' over under is 56.5. So that's.
I think Jonathan
like right there on the border.
Jonathan Brooks is a lot better than people give him credit, man. Like
I think that he's my RB1.
Yeah. I think when you look at the tape, you watch them, and look, a lot of these guys are too. Like there's certain intangibles you just can't coach. The vision, the power, strength, the heart of a guy like Blake Corum, Trey Benson too. I think is a lot better back than people give him credit. So I know we haven't hyped up this running back class. Whatever. That's kind of the position as a whole right now, but. I think Jonathan Brooks goes in the second round for sure. I've got a match with the Giants. I think it makes a lot of sense. Replacing what they lost in Saquon. He's a different style of back than Devin Singletary, too, who they brought in free agency.
Yeah, and Singletary. That's actually, I like that fit. Brooks, Texas, Dallas. They need help with the running back position. Maybe use a second round pick on him. I think, too, we've seen this in the past and it happened in maybe 2013. Like Le'Veon Bell was a 2013 draft class, wasn't he? Where he fell to the second round. People were like, this draft class is not really full. And there ended up being like I think Gio Bernard was in that draft class. It ended up being like 4 or 5 guys who were taken in the second round that ended up being like working out. And when you draft a running back in the second or third round, it really just eases up the pressure on that guy to be this 1,500 yard a year monster. I mean, Derrick Henry was a second round guy too, by the way. What about Jalen, or as you mentioned, Blake Corum? You guys both have him going to the Chargers, which
just makes too much sense.
Jim Harbaugh guy.
Yeah, I mean, if he's there, why not? Like they want to run the football, get a guy who he's watched run the football as well as anyone in college football during the last few years. So it would make a lot of sense. Okay.
Trey Benson, Brady, you have Tampa Bay there.
Yeah, I'd like to see him stay in the state of Florida. I'd like to see him kind of add to that group. I don't know. I mean, Rashad White's been good out of the backfield.
Really good.
But like, I think nowadays you got to have a running back by committee, so it makes a lot of sense. Harry's cutting out my guy Audric Estime, but I actually like that fit the best because I had him going to Tennessee so he could replace Derrick Henry as that big power back. So I want to get that in there before we transition.
Yeah, I had Brinson going to Denver.
That works. I don't think that Sean Payton likes anybody that was on his team before he got there.
I think Javonte Williams is a hell of a back, but I don't feel like they use him that well.
Javonte Williams has been a little bit of a disappointment. He's a second round guy too. Been a little bit of a disappointment in terms of his production out of Carolina. By the way, Harry cut out Will Shipley too, and that's fine. I think Will Shipley, he's like 30-1 to be the first back off the board. I kind of like that as a bet.
Oh, do you?
I just
again, something on that.
Yeah, I'll say. You want to put something on that?
Sprinkle.
It's 30-1. I mean, I'm not saying like it's like a sledgehammer situation, but I mean, he's
great.
Like Peter Gabriel rocks.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on the? All right, good. We'll move to the tight ends now.
No, I need a tight ends. I need Deuce to throw out his big. He's got a big tight end reveal here.
All right, well, first, all right, that's fine. First, we'll get to everyone's first tight end on the board. It's Brock Bowers. I think the question is,
people said he's not just a tight end.
Oh, I would personally match Brock Bowers. You guys, everyone wants to give the Chargers a wide receiver. I think Brock Bowers. I think the Chargers trade with the Vikings, and Brock Bowers at 11 makes all the sense in the world. You get Brock Bowers, and you get an offensive lineman. If this team
just turned it into
a Jim Harbaugh.
If only you just did a mock draft, you could have done that. If only.
Yes, if only. However, I wanted the Chargers to have 2 offensive linemen. And plus, who knows, Brady? Maybe the Jets would take him at 10.
Oh!
He did just take a visit there.
Yeah, I mean, odds-on favorite, too. I think he would be a nice little change-up for them. And the way Rodgers would be able to use him down the field, isolate Garrett Wilson, still have your running backs. And I also, again, I think the Jets can find value to whoever that compliment is to Garrett Wilson in the second and third rounds. I think you could find really good wide receivers still to impact this roster. So it was that. And it was also like, it would be kind of funny to never give Aaron Rodgers a first-round drafted wide receiver. So I would like keep that.
That's true. He's never had that.
Everyone keeps like, oh yeah, like you're going to draft the wide receiver. It's like, no, they're not. He's going to go to a different team. They're going to give him a pass catcher, just not a wide receiver. It'd be funny to see that tradition continue.
Yeah, I had Brock Bowers going.
I actually like this move, Brock Bowers to the Broncos. I almost had that in my mock earlier. That makes it excellent.
Yeah, I mean, you got the offensive guru and Sean Payton. It's going to be way too high to take a quarterback. You go probably best player available if Brock Bowers is still there. They have so many holes on that offense and team. Period. Why not get an explosive playmaker? They already traded away Jerry Jeudy. He could use a tight end that could stretch the middle of the field and then use him in so many different ways. We saw the way that he used. I'm having a brain fire. What's my man in New Orleans, the tight end?
Jimmy Graham.
Not
Taysom Hill. Taysom
Hill, yeah. The way he's been able to use him in multiple different ways, I think he could do the same thing with Brock Bowers.
By the way, if he hadn't given Taysom Hill such a ridiculous contract, he would have already traded for him. I feel very confident.
He did give him a nice deal.
It's Deuce, your number 2 tight end. This is the bombshell that Brady referenced. Ben Sinnott.
It is. It is. When you watch the tape and we talk about the NFL position flexibility, Ben Sinnott can do it all. He could be the H-back. He could be the traditional tight end. You can move him outside. He was the key focal point of that Kansas State offense, and teams still couldn't stop him, right? I look at that Mizzou game, and Mizzou had a really good defense. A lot of those guys, probably like 8 of those guys are going to get drafted in this year's draft from Mizzou, and he still had a hell of a game against them. I paired him to the Cardinals, right? When you look at Drew Perzig, who came from the Kevin Stefanski tree, right? They like those 2 tight end sets. They really like the tight end they took a few years ago from Colorado State. He has a real rapport with Kyler Murray. I think the 2 tight end set makes a lot of sense with the Cardinals. So I have him going to the Cardinals.
Trey McBride?
Trey McBride,
yeah. Yeah. Brady, where do you have Ben Sinnott going, I assume in the first round?
No, not in the first. I think Bowers is the only one probably going the first.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be shocked if someone didn't view Jatavian Sanders as the second best, only because I think he's a legit issue for teams in the passing game. Now, his run blocking is
exactly.
They would describe it as he's a willing blocker. I think it's
I don't even think willing is a word you would use.
I don't think of a more willing blocker, but I think if like the Giants, for example, if Waller doesn't decide to come back, which there's something going on there, could be an interesting fit there later on in the draft. But I've got him going to New England. I just think Sinnott, like, he fits what they're going to ask him to do, which is a variety of things. I think when you look at what Alex Van Pelt did with some of the tight ends in Cleveland, very similar, I think, what they're going to try to do in New England as well. So I could see him going to the New England Patriots. He'd be a solid fit for that style of play.
All right. Cade Stover? Yeah?
I like him.
I got
going. Go ahead.
Where you got him?
I got him going to the Commanders. They need a tight end, a guy that is a willing blocker. He can also be an H-back as well. And then also a guy that can stretch the middle of the field. Could be, if they do take Jaden Daniels, his best friend over the middle of the field. I think Logan Thomas, they already released him. So they need a tight end to come in. I think Cade Stover in the 3rd or 4th round makes a lot of sense to the Commanders.
Man, I didn't say that one, but I liked it. I like Kate Stover in a lot of places because I think he's just like a football player, and he's like the type of guy you need in your team. Very like George Kittle's kind of the comp, I think. So I've got him going to Cleveland. They don't have really many holes in the roster at all, and you're probably saying they've got David Njoku. Well, David Njoku, you flex out as a wide receiver.
Yep.
Stover can do some of that stuff. He's not as dynamic as Njoku, but he can be your wide tight end, put your hand in the dirt, and go fight his tail off for you in the running game. So I would love to see him stay in the state of Ohio and go to the Cleveland Browns and then watch that offense cook.
Plus, unlike the other several hundred people in this draft, he's a football player. Okay, let's go to some offense.
I'll put it this way. When you say something like that, the comment is, I bet if you switched Cade Stover to linebacker, he could start and play linebacker for them.
He could.
I know what you meant. I'm just.
Well, no, didn't he play defense first?
Yeah, and
that's what I thought.
So
they're all football.
So I
know what you mean. I know what you mean. He's a football. He's just a guy. He's a guy who plays football.
Right.
Yeah,
that's part of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like you're a guy who passes out on the beach in the Cayman Islands. It gets way too tan because he forgets to put on his SPF 50 or whatever you should have on your body. So now you've got your nice base tan for the summertime. But in the meantime, you look like you should be in the tank at Red Lobster and people should be pointing at you, picking you to then throw into the fryer.
Oh my goodness.
I think it's the lighting.
Yeah, you're right. It's definitely the lighting. You don't look red at all.
I do look red.
He's got that warm light.
Look, we can all live the luxurious South Florida lifestyle that allows us to be constantly base tan 24/7, 365, Brady. Moving along to the offensive line, Joe Alt. You guys both have him. I had him going to look. Here's the thing that's kind of weird.
This makes too much sense.
It does. Joe Alt to the Titans at 6th or 7, excuse me.
7, right?
7. The issue here is that it feels like it feels like 4, 5, 6, 7 is kind of just sort of like set up too easily, or maybe in 5, maybe there's a trade, but it's like all these, it's like Harrison, Chargers either trade or maybe drafted a lineman. And then it's like, they could take Joe Alt at 5 too, by the way.
They could. Yeah, I think me and Brady mocked him earlier in our 2 mock drafts for him going to the Chargers at 5.
But yeah, the Titans need offensive line help. He'd be a perfect fit. And you have to think he fits the Brian Callahan and Bill Callahan mold in terms of what they want in an offensive lineman, right?
Yeah, I didn't realize he measured at 6'9". I was like, good God.
Oh, bro, he's ridiculous.
I saw him. I know he's big, but I didn't realize he's that big. No, it makes a ton of sense for their system, what they're going to ask him to do. He fits a need for them as well. I understand what you're saying. But I think the more I looked at actually how I did my picks with each team where they match, in this case, it was more of all right, this is where I could see them kind of same thing. They could fit in, but I don't really see them getting past this point. So I don't see Alt getting past 7. I don't see Fashanu getting past the Jets at 10. And we could go through the rest of them, but that was kind of how I did this exercise with the linemen because it's a little harder to kind of predict where they could fit in. But for most of these guys, it's a solid tackle class. The only thing becomes, and dudes, you could talk to this, there's only really 2 or 3 you could say true left tackles, meaning
that's the thing.
Fashanu, and then you would say Fatanu, but he might move inside the guard even though he
guard. Correct.
So that's the only thing that kind of concerns you, I think.
Yeah, and when you look at Alt, to me, it makes more sense for Tennessee than the Chargers because of what you just said, Brady. Joe Alt's a true left tackle. They have a perennial All-Pro already, the Chargers, and Slater at left tackle. So, you would have to move Alt to right tackle, and that's a hard transition for a guy that played left tackle. And I'm not saying he can't do it. He can do it, but I just think it makes more sense for them to get a pass catcher. And then Fashanu right to the Jets is I like that as well, especially if the top 3 receivers are gone. The only thing is that it would essentially be a redshirt year for him if everybody stays healthy. Now, Tyron Smith hasn't stayed healthy his whole career, and you got to think Morgan Moses coming off a torn pec, and he's in his mid-30s as well. So that's the only thing. If the Jets do take Fashanu, could it be a quote-unquote redshirt year for him as well?
The only thing I don't understand about that is everyone's been saying that, and I've said that too. Is how do we know that these guys that are older don't end up being the insurance policy? How do we know
that makes a lot of sense too, and I'm glad you said that
because
is Yeah, I'm glad you said that because essentially that's exactly what the Jets did a few years ago when they signed Morgan Moses in 21. He was the swing tackle, but he ended up starting because Mekhi Becton got hurt. So like that could be a real scenario where we know Tyron Smith has played right tackle. He had to do it last year, right, and the year before. So he could go to right tackle, and you could put Fashanu at left, and then your emergency tackle could be Morgan Moses, which I'm not opposed to at all.
And by the way, Morgan Moses' contract is I think it's 1 year.
I was gonna say he's not making that much money.
No, it's 1 year, $5.5 million with zero dead money if they cut him. So, I mean, that's a situation where if you draft a tackle in the first round, you'd almost prefer you want that tackle beating out Morgan Moses, and then Moses is the backup option who doesn't want to get cut because he wants to make his money, but understands that he might not be starting.
I mean, but $5 million for a swing tackle is nothing in today's NFL.
Right.
Because those guys are going to start.
Yeah. Talise Fuaga, Brady, you think the floor is the Bengals there at 18? I think they're really fascinating because they've been tied to Brock Bowers a ton. They're not a team that trades up, though. They've done this a lot in the past where they did it with the safety who left and went and signed with the Falcons, whose name I'm completely.
Oh, Jesse Bates.
Jesse Bates, thank you. Good Lord, sorry. Jesse Bates left, and then they draft his replacement, and when he's on the franchise tag,
they drafted.
Thought they did, right. But I'm just saying,
like the way I look at this is, again, I think that's like the farthest he would fall, depending on if he's still there.
Yeah.
I think the Saints would make a lot of sense. I know that's where Deuce went with this one. I think that's where you really start talking about him being somewhere in that range of 14 to 18.
Well, I mean, it depends on who you talk to, Brady, because some people actually have him ranked higher than Olu. I don't know how, and I love Talise Fuaga, but there used to always be like a precipice on left tackles, like pure left tackles, and maybe just because the NFL has changed, right tackles are just as important. I mean, Fuaga can play literally 4 out of the 5 positions on the offensive line, so maybe that's why people have him ranked a little bit higher because of position flexibility. I think the Saints just make too much sense. Ryan Ramczyk, we don't even know if he'll be healthy enough to play, and Trevor Penning really struggled when he was a starter as well, so they absolutely have to get a tackle in the first round, and I think Fuaga
the Saints tackle situation is underrated.
It is abysmal and awful right now, their situation.
Yeah, it's a bad spot unless Penning makes a step forward. It doesn't sound like Ramczyk will be ready for the season. All right, Amarius Mims, J.C. Latham, Troy Fatanu, Jackson Powers Johnson, and Graham Barton. Give me your favorite match out of that group.
I think, to me, it's Jackson Powers Johnson in Miami because they need it. I think you've got to be able to solidify the interior of the pocket. I don't know how many guys I would say would be day one ready with the upside ability as that Jackson Powers Johnson has. So that'd be where I think he'd be the best fit for the players that I kind of place in those spots.
Yeah, I like that mock, Brady. And one of my mocks, I had him there. And then the next mock, I had him going to Dallas. They lost Tyler Biadasz. So to me, that fills a void right away. And for a Dallas team that said they're all in, they really haven't done much in the offseason. So filling that void with Jackson Powers Johnson for Dallas makes too much sense. And then the Troy Fontenot one is intriguing. We both have him going to the Seattle Seahawks. And I think it's because of the position flexibility. Now, they did just sign Lincoln Tomlinson. But he's probably going to be a swing guy for them. But Troy Fontenot, even though they do have 2 really good tackles, he could swing into guard and start from day one.
Cowboys also secretly, for years, it's like Cowboys offensive line is one of the best in the league. It's like now
I'm surprised Tyler Guyton didn't make this list, Brady.
I think was he?
I didn't make the list. No point of me here. Someone put Tyler Guyton in there.
Hey, is Amarius Mims going to go to the Eagles? Because, Howie Roseman
loves Georgia players.
He loves Georgia players.
I got him going to the 49ers.
I can see that. Yeah,
he's a very large man.
He is.
Gigantic.
He's got to stay on the field, man.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great stuff, fellas. You really lobbed out a lot of great matches there, Brady.
I just try to stay red hot. You know what I'm saying?
I love it. I see what you did there.
I mean, I might actually reward myself for this podcast with a little surf and turf. What do you think about that one? I got to make sure the steak is rare. Like I want it rare. Juicy on the inside. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
I actually think it was mostly me laughing. Like I turned really red.
You're gonna mess around and make Will red hot.
I know. That's right. That's right. Very good stuff, as always. All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. For Deuce, for Brady, I'm Brinson. We'll see you guys later.